I'm one of 3 counselors in the office, soon to be one of 4 counselors in the office. And we are so excited to do the senior panel. And I wanted to give you kind of an overview, just a really brief overview of a few 2023 specifics before we have our panelists introduce themselves, and we give them, I think, to start with the round of applause for students who leave school on the last day of school and then come back at 6. That's the kind of Firebirds we're talking about. So the biggest senior class ever this year, 117, including a student from Brazil joining us for the year, matriculating to 67 different colleges and universities, including 8 visual and performing artists who applied with portfolio for admission, 4 D1 recruited athletes, and 2 students choosing to go international for college, 1 to Edinburgh and 1 to London. So this is the small print of 1 year's matriculation list. Every time you see an asterisk, it means more than 1 Firebird is matriculating to that school. And whenever you see kind of a little bit of an arrow, like at Berkeley, that's where we have 1 athlete, women's soccer. Let's see, Chaminade, women's volleyball, and 2 women's runners going to Vanderbilt. So the story of this year's list, I mean, there are many stories inside a list like this. Every year is uniquely different, and because we are a small environment, typically in our profile, and it's the way of most independent schools, you print matriculation lists across 4 years. So in any given year, we can look for certain names that we expect to see and we don't see. There are names we always see. I'm going to name a name right now, Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, where we learn by doing. It's one of our favorites. But a couple of schools on this list, I would say Cooper Union for the advancement of science and art. Very exciting school to have on our list for the first time, New York City, down in the Village. I mean, it's a killer of a bumper sticker, but other than that, super interesting school. So technology, performing arts, engineering, very exciting. So we have a couple of schools. We have a student matriculating to a school that's coming back on our list, Clemson, and returners like Princeton as well, sitting up here. So I want to go to, from this big list, to the story, part of the story of this class, which is hanging on to California, right? So 52 seniors out of 117 are staying in the state of California. It's kind of exciting, right? We have great schools here. 20 of those students are going to UC campuses. Most enrolled UCs this year, as of this moment, and there's still some shifting going around, would be Cal in Los Angeles, tied at 4 apiece. And again, most enrolled is Cal Poly, and that's a range of students. Entrepreneurs, engineers, and architect this year. So when it comes to California private, University of Southern California is drawing the most students from us this year, 7 students enrolling there this year. So all in all, 117, 61 students are staying in the western region, 37 are heading to the northeast, the east, the southeast and the northeast, excuse me, Josie, and 5 to midwestern states. So, just going to give you that overview just so that you have a sense of where students are heading. And next I want to start with Jack at the far end and have students introduce themselves, let people know how long, what year you started Pacific Ridge School, what you're involved in here, and then just pass the mic down.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. My name is Jack. I've been here since 7th grade. I'm from Oregon. I'm involved in a few things across campus. Like my club is Model United Nations, and my service program is eco-friendly, which is about making a more sustainable campus. Is that good?
Hello, I'm Jara. I'm going to Smith College, and I've been here since 7th grade, and I started this year the Supporting Adoptee Voices Alliance, and also I'm involved in the service learning awareness and mental health education. I've also done some volleyball. I've been involved with a lot of sports at this school as well. So,
Hello, I'm Nicole. I don't know what year, but I started in eighth grade. And right now I'm kind of involved in speech and debate. I did a bunch of service learnings during 9th and 10th. Like I was in crisis and I was in one where you I forgot the name, but I think building blocks was its old name. And then but now I do visions of change. I don't really know what we're doing, but it's cool.
I'm Lily. I went to the University of Michigan. I am the leader of our T-shirt and apparel design club here. I'm a member of the flock, and I'm a member of the basketball team and one of the captains of the track team.
Hi, I'm Scarlett. I've been here since 9th grade and I'm going to UW. For clubs, I've been in MUM for 4 years and led it for 2. I've been in the academic league all 4 years and been captain for most of those. And robotics, I've been in that for 2 years and been a driver for the team for 2 years. And then service learning is stellar.
I'm Josie. I'm going to Clemson University. I was basketball team captain this year. I have been super involved in the theater programs here, doing at least one production every year. And that title got wavered a little bit throughout my time here, but I did it. I pulled it off. And then I am co-president of the Service Learning Fast. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Cassie, and I'm going to UCLA next year. This year I was captain of the girls soccer team over at Pacific Ridge. I've been starting in 7th grade. I co-lead Latinos Unidos Affinity Group and also with service learning. And then I'm co-president of the School Spirit Club, The Flock.
Thank you. So I learned some things here and there too on that. And I also think they left plenty of things out. But when we do this panel every year, I think what parents enjoy most about it is hearing your experience in terms of when you look back at your junior year self at this time, or to your 8th grade self, or your 9th grade self. Does anyone want to comment on the way your college process unfolds and how anticipated and not that is when you imagine what will happen as you look at colleges?
It changes a lot. It will. I think in just the last 2 years, it changed a drastic amount for me. So I wish I kind of knew I didn't have to have it figured out in 9th grade and 10th grade. And some people, your students are going to feel like their friends have it figured out. They do not. No one has it figured out. And I don't think I can emphasize that enough. But that was my biggest thing, is just giving myself the time and the flexibility to realize I'm gonna change, and what I want out of a school is gonna change, and what I want out of a program, what I want to study, it's all subject to change, and you gotta live with it.
Also, I still don't have it figured out. I don't know what I'm going to do this year. I'm going to figure that out. So nothing's gonna be completely figured out your senior year. Everything's gonna keep changing, as you said. So I'm excited to figure that out. Not figured out yet.
Okay, well, mine's a little different. I came to senior year, I had my heart set on going to ASU. And I was like, okay, that's all I'm gonna go to. And I went to all my tours, like, okay, I love it here. And then I have a brother who's also a senior, so I got taken along a bunch of college tours. And I was also like, okay, no, I don't want to go to ASU. And I want to go to all these other schools. And so I took my parents on that whole roller coaster ride of, oh, no, I want to go to this school, and I want to go to this school, I want to do college, athletics, I don't want to do that. So it all changes, and I literally went into camp college, I'm applying to ASU, and that's it. And I'm applying to way more schools and a different variety of everything. So I wish I told my junior self to try more things and realize what I actually wanted by trying everything.
I completely agree with what they're saying. Everything changes, and word of advice is to just chill, please. Because oh my god, I was such a nerd in 8th grade and undergrad. I wanted to do all these hard classes, and I was so pushing myself so much to do all this stuff I didn't care about just because I thought it would look good on a college app. And in the end, I didn't even use most of it. because I was just doing it just to look good and not what I actually cared about. And as I entered like junior year in 12th grade, just do stuff you like. Like I liked doing ceramics and art, so that's what I did. I used to do like volunteer and teach that during summer, and you just do stuff you like, and eventually you'll end up where you need to be. So yeah.
I think that like going into senior year, I was very much dreading it because I thought, oh, college is good. Like the college process is gonna be so long and grueling, and I knew that it was going to be like this, like chug along, just always on top of it, always having, and it is that way. But also, but also, there is more time to breathe than you think there is. I had a lot more time to be like, oh, let me actually look at my personal statement again, and let me actually do another draft of this, or just start all over again, because like there's more time than you think if you manage it well.
One thing I would say, just to add on to what I said earlier about, you know, how you're always going to change, it can be kind of hard to know where to start. You know, when you're looking at all this, I just, you know, start researching, visit places where you can. Like I had no idea going into this really what I wanted, but I can tell you when I was at some tiny campus in the middle of nowhere, Massachusetts, I knew it wasn't that. So you just, I'm sorry. No, it's just, and everyone has, you know, different preferences, but you just like, you have to start somewhere, and you know, go into it knowing you're gonna change. You know, Oregon wasn't always my favorite, but like, go into it still, you know, try to start somewhere.
Yeah. What about your experience here at Pacific Ridge do you think made you flexible and patient with yourself? I mean, can you point to maybe an organization you joined or a way you pushed yourself in a role in an organization you're in that kind of filled you with more confidence in terms of understanding you didn't have certainty where you applied, that it was in someone else's hands, that you did the best you could, and you knew it was going to turn out okay?
I had a lot of friends who were very, like Nicole was saying, very focused on what classes they were choosing because that was going to look good in college apps, and I was never really that person. And so I definitely had some moments, both my junior and senior year, where I, you know, either I probably senior year where I got a rejection letter and I was, oh my god, I did it all wrong. Now looking back, no, I am very thankful that I followed what I wanted to do instead of what I thought the colleges wanted me to do. So that, I don't know if it's a specific moment, but it's kind of I had to sit with myself about that, about remembering that this is my high school experience and I want to remember it not sitting in a class that I absolutely hate to end up, I believe everything happens for a reason, so you know, you're gonna end up where you need to end up. And so I had to reassure myself of that a couple times, but like Nicole said, doing what you love is very important. And so when I would be sitting in my service learning group and working with kids with intellectual developmental disabilities and laughing with them and coloring with them, those are the moments where I was like, okay, I'm doing what I need to do right now and I'll end up where I need to end up. So, yeah.
So I went into my 10th grade year, I'd never taken a graphic arts class ever. I'd always done like performing arts. I'd always done like choir or dance when things are right or they're wrong. And I showed up to graphic design and I turned it my first time and I was like, okay, it's right? And she's like, yeah, it's right. Like, it could be like whatever, it would still be right. And I ended up joining like the Club Diamond now for graphic design that year. And I was like, I'm just doing this and I just have to get it over with and I'll be back to choir. And then I fell in love and I loved every second of it. And so I had like staying in the club, leading the club for 2 years, like I love every minute of it. But it was like the thing of like, it was no longer it's right or it's wrong. Because throughout the college process, you'll get into some schools that you were like, oh, I should have gotten in there. And you'll get rejected from something like, I should have gotten in there. because it's somebody else's decision. It's not always being right or wrong.
So I have like two completely different things to say on this topic. One of them is more to what Josie said, that like, look, I changed service learnings twice. That meant that I never had, like a leadership role in service learning. That also meant that like in my service learning this year, it's just so much fun. And like that's what matters. Also, I will say one thing that I, kept having to remind myself is like, sometimes you feel like you're not doing it right or any of this, but I, at the same time, like any of the colleges I applied to, any of the ones I got into, I would have been happy at. Yeah, there's some that I like more than others, but like, it's important to, at least for me, it was important to remind myself that like, maybe not everything goes my way, but I'm gonna, I did the research, I'm gonna be happy where I end up. And I think that's really important to understand that.
By a show of hands, did anyone know for sure at this time last year what you were going to major in when you filled out your college applications? And do you know the same thing today? Keep your hands up. Yes. And how many of you, if you are multi-interested, or what we call undeclared, it's not undecided. I know that. You make many decisions every single day. Tell us a little bit about, a lot of times when we're working with students, they don't know where to start their research, so don't know what, everyone knows what they're going to major in. Going to Josie's point, like everyone around me knows. When did you realize that everyone around you doesn't actually have a 5-year plan in place? When do you think it dawned on you if that's how it seemed around you?
Okay, well, the college I'm going to, like a specific college, you have to go in as undecided, which makes it a lot easier to realize that nobody else has a plan. Because I showed up on campus day and I was around all the students, and they're all like, I think I want to major in this, but also there's this other major that's interesting and this other college that's interesting. And then I came back to PRS and I was talking to people, and they're like, well, I applied as this, but I'm already now doing research about the school and I like this. So just like I reached out to my friends and I've also realized like, yeah, we've decided to major in one thing because we applied under something. But everyone's always like, oh, well, there's a possibility I might want to study this in the future, or minor in this, or do all this. And so, while like we have our like elevator pitch that we'll tell parents when they ask us what we're doing for college, like, everyone is like constantly changing. Like, also I came home, I was like, I want to study communications, and they're like, that's not just social studies anymore. That's not cultural studies. I was like, okay, but I want to study this, and I kept changing my mind. And then I realized talking to my friends that everyone else was doing that too. It was just that so many people had to like put one major on their application.
Yeah, so I recently went on a college tour about a month ago, and I asked a question. I was like, what is the average amount of times a college student changes their major here? And they're like, oh, it's 2.5. I was like, okay, thank the Lord. I thought everyone came in knowing what to do, keep it 4 years, but my tour guide changed hers, I think, 3 times. So I was really relieved to hear that. And so that's kind of just a nice way to go to college, knowing that people will find out what they want to do, and that's the best place to find out.
And there are people there who will help you figure out what you want to do once you start learning more. What are you most excited about when you think about going away to college? What excites you most about being wherever you're picturing yourself next?
I'm really excited to get to run around everywhere, because where I'm going, like, it's not like California that's like all like centered around like cars to get you everywhere. Like, it's smaller towns, so I can like walk to the store or walk to get food. I mean, I have a license, but yeah, it kind of sucks because environment stuff. So, and like just exploring a new place in general, I feel is nice because I've lived here like my whole life. I'm ready for something new, and new people and everything. I guess just new.
Yeah, I'm mostly excited for weather. I really like cold weather, so I'm excited for that. Also exploring a new place, like Nicole was saying, and I think for me, going to college has always been something that's like, oh, I get to figure out what I want to do and experiment more and like, take classes, and like the place I'm going, it's like, oh, you can take whatever classes you like for like the first 2 years, so I'm excited to do that and just see where things take me.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's honestly like the atmosphere, like and just like the feel of where I'm going. That was the one thing, you know, I felt this across many campuses, but it really stuck out to me in Oregon was that it seemed like people were excited to be there, and that made me excited to be there.
I'm excited to be a part of quite a large community coming from PRS. I'm very excited because I actually start in like a month. So I moved all the way across the country in a month to go join this large community, and I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to it a lot. There's like the big game days, and just the big activities, like, and it has a big alumni association too of like people forever that like if I wear a sweatshirt to the school, everyone will be all excited, and it's just like that excitement that comes with it, just being a part of that.
I think I'm just excited for how well the school ended up fitting me as a person. It's in Seattle. I love the rain. I love the city. I'm super into engineering, and just the atmosphere around that city and the campus is super suitable for that. Like Josie said, I also believe in everything happens for a reason. You'll end up where you're meant to end up, which your kids will get tired of hearing. Trust me, it's true. But like, use it sparingly. So have faith in the process. But I'm just really excited to go to a really good community that shares a lot of the same interests as I do.
Yeah, what am I not excited for is the question. I've lived in California my whole life, so I'm excited to take the opportunity to see somewhere else, and if I don't like it, you know, I'll figure out a way to move back or something, but, you know, I'm excited to explore it. I'm excited, like you said previously, I'm excited to be a part of, not that this community is not like that, but that I'd be a part of a group of people that is so excited to be where they are and so bonded by the fact that they all are there. And my college is also in a very small town, so we've only got each other there. So I'm excited to be part of that close-knit group of people, even though it is a larger school. So I'm always meeting new people, but still very close to a community.
Yeah, I agree with all they said. I'm super excited for just all the opportunities that come with being on a big campus. I'm really looking forward to joining club sports and intramurals, play some like softball or some ultimate frisbee, just something new, try so many new things. I'm definitely want to study abroad and super excited for the opportunity as well. Just everything really.
So I want to throw a couple of questions out and have you think on something, and then open it up for parents to ask questions. But could you consider two things? You know, did you have more fun with the writing once you got up and running than you thought you were going to have? Okay. And the second is there a way that you found of working as a family? What did your family do that supported you most? You know, kind of in the thick of this process. What worked for you at home? Rosie's got one.
So I can speak on the family thing. My parents are very different people when it comes to college. My father was very analytical. He had a spreadsheet all laid out. Whenever I would mention a name, he knew every factoid about that place, and it was amazing. I was not complaining about that, but sometimes it was a little overwhelming. And my mom was, let's put every name into a hat and we'll throw it up. And I think the fact that I had both of them was a good, we met in the middle, and we eventually got there. But I was even talking to my mom about this in the car, what she learned at last year's panel and what she told my father is, what worked is, you know, he would get on me about getting my writing done because I am a chronic procrastinator. But it was he would ask me, do you want me to do this? Do you want me to look into this program for you? Do you want me to, I of course would have to look into it myself to know if that was what I was looking for, but to look at, do you want me to look at how many students are here? Do you want me to look at how many live on campus? Do you want me to look into the town and see what's around there? And so, having him help me out with the more tedious tasks, because that's what he enjoyed, and even if you don't enjoy it, just asking if you can help with anything is just so appreciated. And I remember that made my process so much easier because I was able to look at the spreadsheet without having to surf through the websites and look for that. So that was helpful for me.
So for the first part of this question, there's a lot of writing, so that part of it isn't fun. But the things you get to write about can be really fun. I mean, I wrote about The Martian and about playing piano and about being an Emmy on things that I just love and are a part of who I am. So there are a lot of essays you're gonna need to write, but if you're really passionate about what you do and who you are, the writing will come. And then the second part, my family, I would say the best things you can do are trust your children and be excited for them. That's what my parents did for me. They, of course, were involved in it. I always went to them before submitting my essays. My dad would do the grammar, my mom would kind of do the tone of it. That just reflects who I am. They each had their little parts because they know me best, and they really trusted the decisions I chose to make. My final list, they were like, you know yourself. If these are the colleges you want to apply to, we'll support you. And then just throughout all the ups and downs, they were really excited for me, encouraged me to keep going. And they're still very excited for me. So just doing those small little acts is really nice and so appreciated by us.
My thing for my parents and how they could support me is to remind it's my process and that I'm gonna pick where I'm gonna go. So like in terms of like writing, it's just like keeping sure or making sure that it's like all sounds like me, it's all about me. Whether it's like a serious essay or my one about Pitbull, like they were all there and they were all done and they all just say like, okay, she'll get them done when she gets them done. If she wants to apply to the school like enough, she'll finish her essays. And we're there to help. And then also the tours, like if I went into campus, like Jack said, you get to feel like if you want to be there or not. And my parents had a question when I walked onto like URI campus. I was like, like 5 minutes into the tour, and they're like, okay, just stick it out, but we don't have to come back. And I was like, okay. Just like listening to your student because they're gonna know what's best for them.
So for the first part was, so supplements, like, those are weird, because when I first started, like, I think I took everything too seriously, so I kept writing about, like, just, like, really, like, basic stuff, like hardships, and you talk about, like, grades and your greatest accomplishments and everything, which can be fun, but at the beginning it seems very, like, I don't know, like, not that, like, it's not me, but the colleges that ask for longer, like, more supplements, it seems annoying at first, but they're the ones where you really get to be about yourself, because, like, for one of them I applied to, like, the first question was like, oh, like, talk about serious discrimination in your life, blah, 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 and then the bottom one, I wrote about cats. So you can just, like, just be yourself, just be, like, cool. And then for the second part, my parents didn't go to college, and they didn't know anything about it, and neither did I. So when I was applying to stuff, so thanks, Mr. Trella, I go to college now. So while I was applying, like, the way they supported me was not by, like telling me what college to apply anything to. They would just, like help me out, like, oh, like, it's okay, just apply where you want to, like, we trust in you, we believe in you. They bring me, like, little slices of apples and stuff. Like, it's just nice. Like, just knowing that they're there to support you, it's just, like, that's just, like, the best you can do. Like, that's honestly all you need.
For me personally, I'm just a writer, so I was definitely writing down all the ideas immediately. I think a lot of times it was like, if I saw a supplemental, like, it's good to look at it kind of like the question a little earlier on, because then I can like think about it more. So like what I was doing a lot of times is either I would look at it and be like, oh, I know immediately what I'm gonna write, or I would look at it and put it off for a couple weeks and then wake up in the middle of the night and be like, let me write it all now. And so that was kind of just how I worked. And then like as I got further into the process, it gets easier learning how to format and write a supplemental, your personal statement. It just gets easier. And also for the family thing, my mom is a researcher, and so there were pages like pasted onto our walls, and like packets, like here's this college and here's what they have and here's what you might be interested in. That was great actually for getting us start, because going into it I really only knew like a couple colleges I was interested in, and so having someone to research and like open up my mind a bit more to like different colleges was good. My dad is also very much spreadsheet man. I remember it was like I walked into the office one day and my dad was like, I have a spreadsheet and it calculates all these things. I was like, okay. But yeah, I think just like knowing that they were there was very helpful, and like honestly just like for me also chronic procrastinator. Mr. Charles might not have seen it, but I am. And it was also a lot of just like, have you done this yet? And me being, oh yeah. So like, there's like a lot going on, so also like helping to keep track of some of these little things is very helpful.
For me, for the writing one, I don't know that I would call it fun, but it wasn't bad because I had time. Like I started brainstorming potential topics over the summer, and there's some like you had access to UC questions over the summer. If you just start early and you like keep working on it consistently, I never really was like rushing to fit a deadline. I know that's not the story for everyone, but because I had time, it wasn't that bad. As for the parent question, I mean, my parents helped me in so many different ways. But the best thing, some people kind of already said this, but they just like let me do it. They knew I was gonna get all the work done. They knew I was gonna find the right place, and they just supported me do that. And if I ever wanted advice, they would give it to me, but they weren't trying to push anything on me.
I want to open it up to questions you all might have. Yes?
So you guys all basically had the same theme around you change your minds from where you started to what school you thought you wanted to where you picked. What were the major things that influenced that change in decision?
Well, my process started out a little differently. I was originally to go and do D3 track and field. So I waited a while because I was talking to a bunch of coaches about like, oh, maybe this school, maybe this school. And so that kind of started to shape my college process. And then I kind of like started to be like, okay, I went to go visit those schools and I was like, okay, these don't quite look the right fit though. So then I went and I visited some schools that had like a big campus with a big atmosphere and like the big state schools. And I was like, okay, this feels more right. And then I got to those, and I got to ASU and those type of schools, and I was like, okay, but I have to go to the honors college to get the kind of classes and like challenging like PRS I wanted. And so it was all like trying to figure out and visiting other schools to figure out like, okay, this feels right about this school, but this doesn't quite fit. And I had Miss Moss, so I'd go and talk to her each time, like, okay, this felt right, and then she'd like recommend some schools, and I went to them, I'd be like, okay, this has these 4 puzzle pieces, correct? And just like trying to fit all the puzzle pieces together.
For me, similarly, a lot of the change wasn't necessarily with my major, but with the colleges I was applying to. My older sister wrapped up and figured out where she was going to college right as I graduated 8th grade, and so we're 4 years apart. And she had done all her research. I saw her list and where she applied, where she got into and didn't. And so a lot of those schools started out on mine because I was like, well, we're pretty similar. We're both in STEM. That would be a good starting point for me. But some of those stayed, yes, on the list, but a lot didn't. And a lot of new ones came on because we have different majors, we're different people, we want different things. So while it was valuable to see her go through the process, and I'm so glad I did, and she was able to help me through mine, a lot of the schools didn't overlap, and I mean, they changed up until probably last year when I dropped it because it wasn't the state that I wanted to be in, or it didn't have the kind of community that I felt like I needed.
I would say the biggest factor that changed, like Scarlett said, my major didn't waver all that much throughout the process. Maybe I was able to define it a little more through each school, but it was the colleges I was looking for, and the biggest part of that was visiting these colleges because I had no reference of what a college was. I had gone to 2 college campuses, both very different, and I wasn't in the mindset of I could be living here for the next 4 years. So I remember being able to see colleges, and a lot of them I visited I didn't end up applying to, but I realized this is something that I love. I want to make sure this is like another campus that I go to. I thought I wanted to go to an urban school in the middle of a big city because I wanted to be able to walk everywhere. I wanted to meet lots of people. I went to go visit school in the city. I hated it. I was, oh my God. And so those gut feelings that I had were the biggest factors in changing where I was applying. And even though I didn't see all the schools, thankfully I followed my gut for a lot of them, that it didn't like lead me astray, so.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Josie. I think visiting colleges and being on the campus really was the biggest factor in kind of deciding where I wanted to apply. At the end, when I was trying to decide where I wanted to go to college, I was deciding between 2 schools, and I visited both like one day after another, and it was really the gut feeling. I was like, I could see myself here. I applied to some schools where I regret applying to because I think I applied on the whim, and when I really thought about it, I was like, I'm not going to this random place in the middle of nowhere. I was like, why did I apply in the first place? But I think really thinking about what you want and trying to go visit if you can is definitely the best advice I have. But gut feeling is totally right.
But I think what changed wasn't necessarily the college or like the major or the institution. It was more just like looking at yourself and stuff. Because I feel like for a majority of the time, you're really just doing on like what your parents want to see, what your teachers want to see, what you think. It's just like, I don't know, I'll just take this class. But like, I feel like you choose a college because you start to change and you start looking at yourself rather than at a class or exploring the world. You kind of move out your own bubble, like. Because I don't think anyone thinks of their house as a preference, they just see it as someone they live. But if you're trying to pick a house, then that's a bad analogy. But you gotta, you gotta look at like what you want, and you're not like, you're in control of your situation, which is like new to a lot of people. And I think that kind of thing, that's like when a lot of people are gonna face this with the why you or like who are you essay. That's hard for a lot of people because you never really had to define yourself and your existence, and finding the right words to describe yourself with and not just what other people think of you is rough. So I think as you figure yourself out and do all that stuff, colleges will come easily, but just try to be yourself.
Any other question over here?
Yeah, I was just, for those of you with the spreadsheet parents, what was on the spreadsheet that was helpful? And what was annoying? Does the template have logos on it, the whole thing?
I would say the spreadsheet itself saved me a lot of conversations whenever people would come over and be like, where are you looking at for college? My dad would be like, let me show you the spreadsheet. And I didn't have to say a word. And they just looked at the spreadsheet and I would say, oh yes, and that's where I want, So that helped. But some of the categories, I mean, we both together kind of went over sections like how many undergrad, you have to live on campus, stuff like that. So those were definitely helpful. I think he found crazy rankings from crazy publications that I was like, okay. But it was cool to see the biggest thing we were both kind of looking at together was he was looking at a lot of the academic stuff, but he made sure to show me all of the student life data and like how students will rate the school, how community is at that school. I don't know how you rate that, but just comparing different resources for that and seeing, I remember my mom was looking at this happiness meter for a long time. So they're crazy rankings, and you shouldn't always trust the rankings. But I think the rankings are more valuable in qualitative areas of student life and student happiness and student activities and because that's what I was looking for in the school I was going to. So that personally helped my choosing and like, okay, these students there's more off-campus activities here. There's more on-campus so those kind of categories I liked. He liked the ones that were about my major and what classes I would be taking, and I of course looked at those. But personally, I liked the community one.
We have grade level time with students in their junior year, and we show them a series of organizational tools, because some people are journal people, other people are Google Sheet people, some people are color-coded Google Sheet people. It evolves, and I think a lot of that conversation and a lot of watching students come into their own in their process has everything to do with pointing out emerging personal priorities and how those might drive research. So I think you all probably have experience in that. I think there was another question up here too.
I had a question about visiting schools this summer before your senior year. Did any of you visit in the summer? Was it worthwhile? Was it a waste of time? Could you get a vibe? Because most kids were probably not on campus then.
Well, I did it during spring break, and so a good amount of them were still pretty empty. And of course, during the day, sometimes you just hit it when they're all in classes. But I'd say visiting kind of at the end of your junior year is definitely helpful. It shows you, it makes you more confident in your list, I would say, because I saw a bunch of the schools and I was like, okay, I'm definitely applying here, or I'm not applying here at all. Just even based on the city around it, the size, the campus feel. So I would definitely encourage visits if you have the means to do so.
Yeah,
I visited entirely during the summer, all the colleges I was interested in, or at least some of them. And for one, if you're going to the East Coast, it's very hot, so be prepared. But also, I think for me personally, I was always very nervous about how to interact with current students on campus. So it was kind of nice to just like explore on my own, but of course, you're not going to get the same sort of campus atmosphere, and you know, some campuses might have closed their buildings, and you can only go in certain areas and all that. So it's just like pros and cons. What do you want to get out of it?
Yeah, I visited a lot during the summer, and it was nice. Most of the schools that end up getting like my final list, I visited more than once. And the summer was a great time to get that first visit in of like, okay, like even though there's no students in here, do I like the campus? Do I like the buildings? Do I like even go see a couple of students there? Because normally there's like a couple and you can talk to them. You still have your tour guides. Like there's still like, you still understand what students are like, and you still get to see exactly like what it would feel like to be there. And then also, I'd highly recommend going to summer, if you're going to somewhere that gets hotter, because you want to love your school like any day that you have to be there. So if you're going somewhere colder, maybe visit during the cold. If you're going somewhere warmer, visit when it's warm. Like, it's that way with everything. Like, if you're questioning a thing about it, visit when that thing will be in effect. Like, if you're nervous about the students, maybe visit when the students are there, or if you're nervous about the weather, visit when the weather's there. So.
Oh, that's good. Cassie, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, real quick. I'm gonna jump in here. So I visited most of my schools during the school year, using my breaks through the year, but I did visit them some over the summer. I think if you can visit when school's in session, it's much more valuable, but it never hurts to visit. Just visit whenever you can. Because yeah, you may not get like the full vibe if you visit in summer, but you can still realize like, oh, this campus is ugly. I don't want to live here for 4 weeks. Or like, oh, there is nothing to do in this town, so I'm gonna get bored out of my mind. Like you know, if you have the chance to visit, visit.
I think processing too, when you visit campus, you go with your parents, or you go with your friends, or you go with your sister or your brother or something. And then you start looking with accepted eyes, like I'm choosing this place, and I'm gonna get here by myself. Like that's what's gonna happen next. So I think a lot of thinking goes into that. Any other questions? I'm gonna go in the back and then I'll come here in the aisle.
Just kind of along those lines, so I guess I'm curious now, how many places did you guys visit? And we knocked off a few, right, during spring break. I think we did 4. And it was a lot of driving, a lot of driving. And we did not make it to Michigan because it's too far. So that was my first question is, how many schools did you go to? And then second, did you do online virtual visits? And do you think those are as helpful? Or are they as helpful to you, I guess is my question.
So I think I visited about 10 colleges. I only applied to like, I think half of those that I visited, but definitely that was really helpful because then I saw, I was like, oh, I definitely don't want to go here, or yes, I do want to go here. For the ones I couldn't tour, I did try the virtual tour, and it was, I think I was able to see what the campus looked like, but I just don't think it's the same. It was just kind of like, people would be like, hello, welcome to this university, come with me, and I was like, I mean, it was a little bit staged, but I think they were helpful to see the campus, but I think the ones I saw virtually, I was attracted to them.
Before you guys continue with that, Cassie, can I ask you a follow-up question? Because Cassie had 2 older siblings go through here, and I think the feeling among parents a lot of times is like, we need to start this sooner. So did you tag along on tours with your brothers? And if you did, you know, when you were in the 9th grade or something, does any of that stick? Is it helpful? And do you think you could have thought through what you have thought through in the past 6 months any sooner than you needed to think through it?
So I remember when I was in 8th grade, I had a brother who was a junior at the time, and I had another brother who was 2 years older, so 2 years and then 2 years. And then so the oldest one was doing tours then, and when my dad and then my 2 brothers went on tour, I was like, I'm not going. I do not care. I'm going with my mom. We're going to go walk on the beach. We're at like UC Santa Barbara at the time. And I was like, I resisted to go on any of the tours. And then my second older brother, when he went to do tours, He had already seen the most with my older brother, so I didn't really go with him. And I don't think it would have been that helpful going that young because I couldn't really think through that. I think I was kind of just picking random, oh, this is so cool, like the beach is right there, or some random things. But I think doing it at the time, junior, senior year was definitely the most impactful. I think I learned way more when I was older. I couldn't really think about that when I was in middle school or even a freshman. So I didn't really want to think about it this time, so yeah.
Jack, what are you gonna do?
I mean, this goes back to the other question, which I don't
Yeah.
fully remember, but anyway,
many
I
campuses?
visited a lot of schools, like a lot. Now I was also in a different situation than I think a lot of people, whereas I was like, I had a huge list of schools that I was trying to narrow down. So we went on like 3 separate road trips in different areas, and you know, it was incredibly helpful. But you know, I feel like again, I didn't visit every school that I applied to. You don't have to. I think the virtual tours are very helpful in narrowing stuff down initially. If you don't like the virtual tour, you're probably not gonna like the school. But it's like, if there's a virtual tour, definitely do it. But it's not gonna show you what it's like to be on campus. It's gonna show you, you know, what campus looks like at, you know, the prettiest time of year. And, you know, it also, you know, they'll give you all the stats, but so they're helpful, but you know, visit if you can.
So I've visited, I think, about 9 college campuses. 1 or 2 of those were with my older sister, so I don't remember too much, and a few of those were because of school trips, but overall, I'd say they were really helpful. And then if you can't visit them, the virtual tours are a good starting point, but I'd say, like, little pro tip is a lot of college students, there will be, like, YouTube kind of vlog ideas of, like, the actual student experience, and they'll walk you through, like, you can find an engineering major and see what buildings you're going into and actually, like, see the inside of the buildings instead of clicking on the left and right arrows that'll show you a panoramic view on the college's official website. So you get kind of a more personal view for it. So I would, like, combine those 2 if you can't actually visit the college.
What I recommend, sorry, I only visited 3, and they were all this year during breaks, so that was like crazy. It was all like far, but what I would recommend is what I did my junior year. I went to so many of those virtual visits. Like, I was like crazy about them. I don't know why. I went to like one for this one school. It was like a meet and greet, and as soon as that session was over, I signed up for another one. An hour later, it was the same session, the same people. I don't know why I did that. But it's like, it's helpful to do those virtual things because let's be honest, like visiting colleges, especially ones like far away, is like takes so much time and so much resources. And I think like on your breaks, you want to spend time, like especially as a senior, just like chilling and enjoying yourself and hanging out with your friends because you're not gonna have that much time to do that. So just do virtual sessions and don't have this like try to narrow it down. I feel like that's the purpose of that, to narrow it down if you're interested or not. And once you feel like you have a good grasp, then go visit it if you're actually passionate about making that decision. But if it's just like a whatever school, like obviously like you still want to consider it. But if you're really not feeling it, then don't like go and try to convince yourself otherwise. Just trust your gut.
I have a question in the aisle, and I'll go over there.
Did any of you have a difficult decision between one or more schools that you ultimately decided on, and what were the things that pushed you in one direction or another?
I can speak very recently on this. So, spring break, I had narrowed my acceptances down to 3 schools, and me and my dad spent a lot of time driving and flying. The 3 schools were Clemson, Syracuse, and Indiana University. So not the easiest to get to from each other, but we figured it out. And so that was my spring break plan. I was like, by the end of spring break, I'm gonna know where I'm going because it's gonna, I'm gonna figure it out. And it was funny, I hadn't visited them, any of them before, so I was going in with a fresh mind. And I remember I first went to Clemson, then Syracuse, then Indiana, and I ended up really liking Clemson, Indiana. And I remember sitting on the plane home, sitting there, trying to watch my movie, but sitting there thinking, what am I gonna do? Because both of these places are so amazing, and they were different in ways. One was in Bloomington, which was this great city, and there were a lot of things to do, and the other one was in Clemson, which was in the outdoors, and it was gorgeous there. And I I was sitting there and I didn't know what I was gonna do. I didn't know what I was gonna tell anybody when I came home because everyone was gonna be asking me after I came home from these things. And I remember, we were sitting at the beach the next night because we had some friends in town. We were sitting there. And I remember just sitting there thinking, and it was that gut feeling, you know, and I don't think there was anything else to it. It was just the feeling of, or my sister and I were making a joke. I was telling my sister about this the night before and I was struggling. She was like, flip a coin, and if you're disappointed with the result, then you don't want to go there. And we did it, and every time, we did it, it was crazy. We did it like 20 times. Every time it came up Clemson. And so I'm like, well, now I don't even know if I'm disappointed with the other one. I just keep getting one. And so, but then we were all joking about, the signs, the universe is showing me to go here. But I was definitely, it was definitely that gut feeling of, okay, if someone told me you have to go to this school, how would I feel about it? Regardless of what the other school is. And I realized that I wanted Clemson. I just couldn't say it out loud because it was a nerve-wracking thing to do. It was like, oh my God, all of this is leading to this moment. So yeah, it's that I can't emphasize the gut enough. But yeah.
Yeah, I got to my final two. I had Michigan and I had Chapman. And one's in-state, private, small, and one's huge, all the way across the country. And it's public and it's just gigantic. And it was like one of my most challenging schools I applied to too, so the whole process, I didn't talk about it. I like already mentioned to my parents I was applying. I just kind of sneaked it in there. I was like, okay. And I really wanted to go there, but I didn't talk about it with anybody. Even my college mates about it, I was like, no, if I talk about it and I don't get in, then I'm gonna be hurt. And so I got to my final decision. It was like, okay, I'm either gonna go play a sport in college and go have fun and go be in state and with my family all the time, or I'm gonna get to go to my dream school. And it was all about the signs. Like each piece started coming, and I got in, and I was like, I literally was like, saying to my friends, I wish I could just go to college in the summer and just start now. And then I got in for the summer term, and I was like, okay. But I still had to think about it, and then like a week later, I got my aid package. And I was like, okay, if this is right, then I'll go. And I opened it, and it fit perfectly. And I was like, okay. But I don't want to say yes yet, because I was all anxious of like, what if I say no and I want the other option in like a month? Because this was like April 1st, so I still didn't have to make a decision yet. And then I went to campus day, and I did one more visit to Chapman, and I was like, okay, no, this is the one that I want. So it was just all about like visiting and just talking to people about it too.
Yeah, so I was deciding between UC Santa Barbara and Cal Poly SLO before the May 1st deadline. And I went to visit both. My mom actually went to SLO, my dad went to Santa Barbara, so they're like family. I visited SLO that like the first day because they were at the open house, and I visited Santa Barbara the next day. And I felt so bad telling my mom. I was like, I'm so sorry. I just feel it at Santa Barbara. I don't know. I think about it. It was, like Josie said, like your gut feeling. And then 2 weeks later, I got an email from UCLA saying, you've gone off the wait list. I was like, you're kidding me? I have to make another decision. And I was so set on Santa Barbara. I had everything there. I had roommates. I loved the location. I loved the beach. I wanted to surf there. I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. That whole day I was like, I went and walked. I drove my car to Swamis and just walked on the beach and was like alone. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And so that whole day I was just stressing. I was like, they gave me a deadline to make a decision like a week later. So I was like, okay, we're gonna go visit. And actually my parents were out of town that weekend, so I called them. I was like, I have to make another decision. And they're like, oh my God, this is gonna be horrible. So what I did is I called my brother, and I think like he was the one who kind of was like, you should go to UCLA. Like he was USC, and he hates UCLA. That's a huge rivalry. But he was the one that kind of helped me figure that out. And I went and visited it a couple days later, and I wrote a pros and cons list, and I was like, I think I'm gonna go here. And it was that gut feeling when I went there. I talked to a lot of people who went to UCLA and who go there. Talking to people is also something that really helps. I definitely recommend, especially if you know them, some connection or another. But yeah, I definitely think it is truly that gut feeling. And even if you have, like, I was so set on going to Santa Barbara, and it was so hard making this final decision. But I do think that everything happens for a reason, and I'm glad with everything that we tried.
in April is, or somewhere in between, it kind of hits you that I'm deciding and I'm going. And it really underscores the part that we all know, and parents know before students know maybe, that, you know, the college process is about a lot more than college. You know, it's a change up, your roles change a little bit, and when we talk about all these different options we get to choose from, I think it's really exciting to, you know, refer to that theory, kind of the paradox of choice, right? Because you're so attached for different reasons that you can drop a list, but then if you start doing point values, or you flip a coin and you start having a feeling, it's all about, I know I could be great planting myself in any of these options. And so the choosing is not so much, it's hard to choose UCLA or Oregon or Clemson or Washington. It's what do I have to let go of when I choose this one I'm gonna choose. So it's a really exciting time to work with students, I think, and just listen to all of you talk through it in different ways and come to different realizations. I think there was a question over there.
Well, I'm just inspired by how settled and happy you all are and how confident you are in your decisions. But I wonder if you could maybe, I think as a parent, one of the hardest things to watch your child go through is disappointment. And if you could help us and just kind of give some tips on maybe like a reach school that you didn't get into and how you dealt with that, and anything your parents said to you besides, oh, well, that's just not meant to be. Like, is there anything that really helped you? And also, I'm not sensing any competition between you, and like, I wonder how you were able to just be happy for your peers with their accomplishments and, you know, really help them through setbacks.
I can answer. So I had my heart, I really wanted to go to Northwestern. I was like so into the going out of state, going on to a lake, Chicago, a city, and I didn't get in. And I wholeheartedly believe that everything happens for a reason. And I was upset at first, but I think that if going back, I would not choose there. And I think that's gonna happen. I think everything is gonna work out the way it should be. It may be hard in the beginning, but yeah, that's gonna work out. And as for the second part, I think it's important to just celebrate all of your friends and all their accomplishments. Nothing is gonna change if you are kind of competitive in that way, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All I really think it's like, oh, I want to beat them. I want to go to the top ranked school, but it's totally about fit. Like, it doesn't fit you to go to high school, top ranked school. And I think the best part of the whole college process was when one of my friends would open their decision and they got congrats, we would all just like go and hug them, and I would cry like twice. And it was just amazing, and I'm so happy for all of them. But I think just celebrating all these little accomplishments, celebrating your first acceptance, celebrating your first clicking submit, just all of that process is just a whole roller coaster. I think in the end, you'll be happy.
For me, in my personal experience, I feel like it's so easy to get like knocked down from rejections and stuff. And the mindset I went into is like, whatever's gonna happen, happen. Like, I don't think of my own skills being tested. I just think of it as fate, and that's really like the best mindset to have, because like you can get knocked down. Like, I applied to 15, and I got into my first one, which is a safety in Lake Forest, like Chicago, great place. And I got rejected to every single school after that, except for my last 3. And during those things, like, I would open them and I'd be like, okay, it's fine. But that building pressure was just like, oh God, did I mess up real bad on my applications? Like, this was another a target school or safety school. Like, I'm really scared that I didn't get in here, because what does that say for the future? And you just gotta think like, the schools aren't just testing your abilities. They're just seeing how well you would fit into that environment. So you could be the most like able person. You could be like the coolest kid on the block, and they might not want you because you don't fit in with their school vibe, which is a little mean, but it works out. Trust me, it works out.
Speaking from what parents can do to kind of help your students do that, because it does suck. Regardless if you really wanted to go there, you didn't. Getting the no, we don't want you is just, it's crushing. And I was like, oh, is it really that? It's bad. But that shouldn't make you scared to apply to those schools. You should still go for it. But I remember when I got one rejection that really hit me, even though I didn't really, it was the school my dad went to, and so I'd always kind of had that vision of this is the school that college is, like college is the school, and I didn't want to go there. I realized we had different things, and you know, and my dad realized that, I realized that, and so, but still when I got that rejection letter, it was just such a crushing moment. But I remember I did not want my parents telling me at all, that's not where you wanted to go anyways. Like, I was like, nope, let me feel this right now, let me feel sad, let me feel. And so then it took me a few days for us to actually like talk about it and be like, no, I'm okay with this. So giving them your space, their space, but also knowing that you're there to support them. I think the biggest thing, I love my parents, I know they weren't trying to invalidate what I was feeling, but like, supporting those feelings while they're happening, and then they're gonna pass. They're not gonna stay there. They're gonna move on. You're gonna be excited about where you got into. You're gonna be excited about what your future is, and you're gonna forget about all those rejections. So that's the biggest thing is letting those feelings ride out.
Yeah, I applied to 18 schools, way too many, would not do it again. That means each time you get the 18 scares of I have to open this application, I have to open this decision letter. Well, luckily and unlucky, I got into my first 16. So I applied to 2 brief schools last. I ended up getting deferred for both of them, and then I ended up getting rejected. But I realized that I got into my top school, so why did I care that I was being rejected? And I kind of like saw it and self-reflect a little bit the college guidance people. When I opened mine and got rejected, and people in the same class as me were all like partying. And I got to like be celebratory for them though, because I went back to, like, it's all about the grade coming together. Because there's one big day, it's pep rally, winter pep rally day. A bunch of decisions come out, including Michigan. And 16 kids in our grade applied and only 3 got in. So people knew that it had come out. People were all walking down to the pep rally and knew which people had gotten in and which people hadn't. And it was like, kind of like, I looked around like walking on eggshells, like, oh no, what's gonna happen? And I was met, like, everyone saying, congratulations, everyone being super nice, and everyone just like, we all supported each other through everything. Like, I applied to USC, didn't get in, didn't actually want to go, but I was able to celebrate with everybody in my math class that got in. We all got to celebrate and have fun and support people that are going there. That's where they wanted to go, and that's where they got in, because it's the fit for them.
Yeah, for rejections, I think just letting your students feel those emotions and being there in any way that you can, whether they need to cry and like have some alone time for a second and just like accept it, or they need to hug, just whether anything, just be there for them and let them feel it out, because it will pass and you realize it's a really great reminder to know like you will have options in this process and they will be great options, and options that you may or may not be surprised to find that they really fit you and who you are, because you do have to trust the process a little bit, even though it can be scary. And then for friends, just realizing that no one's experience is going to be the same as yours, because I mean, the variety that I find in just my own group of friends, like in majors, there's like film and neuroscience and marketing, all these different things. And so we might have some schools overlap, but they are for completely different things. So what I go through as an engineering major, my friend who's in the arts, completely different experience. So just celebrate each of your wins, and be happy for each other, because those are your friends, those are the people you love, so you just want to support them in any way you can.
I have a little bit of a different experience with this. Personally for me, I didn't take any of my rejections too badly, because, you know, every time I open a letter, it's like, you know, I think about where have I already gotten in, like, I'm gonna be fine. So that wasn't that bad. I will say though, it was kind of hard sometimes to like, you know, see classmates who have like, you know, gotten in somewhere that I didn't get in. And it you know, it does hurt for a couple seconds, but then like if you remember, you know, I would just force myself to think like, I didn't feel this way when I got the actual rejection, because I knew it'd be fine, so why am I feeling this way now? And so, you know, and they've said it like, it's gonna be fine.
Well, catchment area for those schools. So how did you find out about and get excited about those schools? The second question is for all of you. A lot of schools offer these summer programs. You can go for 2 or 3 weeks and like live on campus and take classes with typically their junior faculty or even undergrads or graduate students. But you live on campus and get a college experience. Did any of you do that? And if so, was it helpful? So those are the 2 questions. Well, hold on, Clemson is what I consider to be an obscure East Coast school.
Oh, I didn't say, but yeah, okay, it is a little obscure. I've had to explain, oh, where is it? South Carolina. Yeah, so, okay. So I was actually talking to my parents about this the other day. I don't know how it ended up on my list, but it ended up there. And I think it was probably, I was talking to my college counselor, and I laid out all this criteria, and that criteria changed a lot over the course of my process. But they know, I think trusting them is a big deal because they know what schools fall into what categories. And I remember filling out score or whatever with the most basic, because I had no idea what I was doing, but the most basic parameters of where I wanted to go, and Clemson ended up on the list. It was a big school, it had awesome sports, it was outside of California, which was a big criteria for me. Yeah, that's a good question of how did it ended up there. And so then, and as I was doing more research into it, it kind of cemented itself in that place. Because I applied to a few public universities that Californians do not go to. Like Tennessee, Iowa, other places like that. And so it ended up for my list because that's what I was looking for in a college, what was in those big state schools, public universities that aren't super populated by Californians, so yeah.
For those like smaller East Coast schools, like again, my parents and no family like went to college, so it was all just like literally Miss Petrelli's recommendations, and she was spot on with that, so thanks. But yeah. Yeah, so you just you need to just put yourself out there and be willing to check stuff out, even if you don't think it's like conventionally what you would choose. I don't remember who said that, I think it was Scarlett, but the whole thing about like just finding those YouTube videos that pop up, like oh my gosh, that helps so much, because the algorithm knows you.
For me, my mother went to Smith, and then literally like that's all I heard for like the first 10 years of my life. And so it was always a school that was going to be on my list. And then I kind of took a left turn, I took a right turn, and I was like, oh, do I like this school better? But I always knew I wanted to go smaller, East Coast, and like kind of small college town vibes. And so in the end, I went back to Smith. So here I am. But I think it always met my criteria. I mean, it always had all the things I wanted, and it was one of those things where it's like, oh, I don't want what my mother had, but then also maybe I do want what my mother had. And so there was that.
Second question was the sleepaway camps at the college. Did you do them, and were they helpful?
I applied to one, but something called COVID happened. So I didn't get to this class.
But were there any academic factors that were maybe surprising in your studies?
I mean, personally, I'm going for media and communications. Well, currently undeclared, that's what I'm looking at. And so I looked at a college that had the media and communications, and it's like a top 10. So I was very excited about that. But it's also a Big Ten sports school, and I wanted to go into communications in athletics. So I kind of looked at like that element of student life that I'm very excited about, but bringing it into my academic life and being like, okay, this has the academics that I want for major, but also how I can apply it at the campus I wanted to go to.
I think for me, it was also like academic in terms of like how else can I branch out, like first of all, does it offer the classes that I'm interested in, and other kind of like sub-variants, like I was looking at political science as one, but they also offer like other great humanities courses that are good, and also, and not just about taking the class, but also knowing what to do with it. So for me, I made my choice by looking at the internship availabilities, which is super helpful. Like I'm going to school in New Jersey, and that's really great because you can kind of like go to like New York or like DC, and it's not that far from anything, so you don't have to be limited. Like California is a little isolating, but there's also great stuff in California. But for me, I just kind of like going places. So, and there's so many like internship possibilities in these other places. So it's kind of like if I go to school here, I won't have to be restricted in anything.
I think for me, having like that flexibility, and that's why I like the idea of a bigger school, because there are so many different programs there that if I don't end up liking where my head's at now, I can always switch, or I can always meet new people and always try different clubs, different academic classes, different things, and that's what I liked about a big community, but you can also find that in a small community. But I know that narrowed it down a lot because I was looking for business schools specifically, and some schools I loved, but they didn't have a business school, so I didn't apply there. But so I guess I liked having the flexibility because, like we said in the beginning, we don't have it figured out. So having that is, yeah.
I don't know that there's anything surprising for me. What I did is I started by there's a bunch of different websites with rankings, and you can do it by program. So what I did is if there was a school that so my major is environmental studies, if there was a school that was on a list or some kind of ranking, even if it was 100, I would consider it because I think those rankings are very flawed. I just want to make sure that it was actually notable. But past that, I mean, you can just think about stuff. For me, again, I'm environmental studies, go to Oregon. I mean, great place to study the environment, great place to study the people aspect of it. There's also opportunities for me to branch out into journalism or political science, and it's so again, I think those rankings are helpful starting place, but you can also just think about what are you actually going to do there? A lot of colleges talk about the research you can do. What research can you actually do in this place? And for me, I can study trees, I can study people. It works.
You say you get in where you fit the school.
There are a lot of colleges, so there will be a lot that you end up liking. So even if it's really hard to get into schools, there are plenty of schools that you will do well at and have a great time at.
You can only go to one school, so don't worry about having a super long list. It's going to be fine.
That's very kind. That was excellent.
Trust your kids and what they're interested in. They will end up where they're meant to be. So just follow your heart. I don't know, cheesy but true.
Please chill. And the school is not what makes you. The school does not determine your success. You determine that. So
Nice
keep
one.
doing your own thing.
Have fun with your students while you're doing this, exploring different colleges. I know my parents had fun with me, and that made it so much better for me making it. So.
Celebrate the wins, and everything is gonna happen for a reason.
Great. I think that's a good one to end on.